it's Flo, and this is my impression of me arguing with an old-timey Southern lawyer in a courtroom. Objection! You can't show my client's rates to your customers! We compare our Progressive Direct rate and our competitors' rates in one place, so shopping is easier. Only showing your rate when it's lowest. Slander in the court of law! No, we show our rate even when Progressive isn't the lowest. I rest my case! Move to adjourn for snack time!
Compare rates and save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to another edition of The Grueling Truth. I'm your host, Mike Goodpasser, and joining me as always is my co-host, Matt Andrew Scabbage. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Very good, Mike. I'm excited about the show, probably in a different way than normal. I'm looking forward to learning about some things that I definitely didn't know before, but it's quite a fascinating story about what we're going to be covering tonight.
Well, as Matt said, we have a great show on tap tonight. Our guest was a defensive lineman in the NFL for the San Francisco 49ers, but more importantly, though, since retiring from the NFL, he has become a well-known expert on traumatic brain injuries. He even consults directly with the NFL on rule changes to reduce TBIs in football. Please help me welcome to the show, George Visger. How you doing tonight, George? I think George's phone dropped.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he just got done telling us that could possibly happen. So, what are your feelings on the subject, Matt?
Well, you know, I know like you've got kids that are looking to play football. I don't. I probably won't be in that predicament. But I do have friends that their kids play football, and you know, NFL players have said this for years. You know, when they're playing and their family's watching them out there, and when there's an injury, it's very scary for the entire family. And life after football, there's so many stories now that are coming out about players that have they've lost a lot with their health. You know, dementia has set in, and it's very tragic, and it's also very hard to watch this league that just isn't taking care of players the way we think that, and I think you and I agree on this, that the NFL should be doing a better job of taking care of their former players.
Well, it looks like George's back on the line. George, you there?
I am here. You guys were kind of scrambled. I couldn't understand what you were saying, so we tried it again.
Yeah, we're good to go now. So we'll just start off. Prior to the difficulties that you've had to endure due to football, what attracted you to the sport?
You know, I grew up, I was the fifth of six kids, and both my older brothers played football, and of course, as the younger brother, and I always wanted to be better than them. But the thing about the game that I loved was just the physicality of it. I mean, I played 12 or 13 years total, you know, on every level, and I only carried the ball twice in all those years. I loved just the hitting and just being able to hit people. I wasn't a violent kid, but I loved that physicality of the game and the camaraderie and just the hard work it took to get things done, you know.
Well, you know, you played defensive tackle at A.A. Stagg High in California, and you went on to get to the University of Colorado. At what point did you say to yourself, boy, I really want to get to the NFL?
You know, the first day I ever put pads on in 1970 as an 11-year-old playing on the West Stockton Bear Cubs Pee Wee Pop Warner team. I mean, I had two passions when I was a little kid. One, I wanted to be the greatest NFL player I'd ever lived, and I wanted to be the next Jacques Cousteau oceanographer. Those were my two passions. And I played on the very first Pee Wee team Stockton ever had, the 1970 West Stockton Bear Cubs, and we had 29 kids on the team. 3 of us signed NFL contracts in 1980, and our safety was a kid by the name of Vaughn Hayes, who went on to a multi-Major League Baseball all-star career with the Phillies.
Yeah.
So we had 4 professional athletes on that little Pee-wee team.
Well, the thing that bothered me the most when I was just reading some of your bios, and I've experienced this with my 2 sons, both played Pee Wee football for a couple of years, was the bull in the ring drill. And during your 3rd year at Pop Warner, and I've seen the bull in the ring drill done. I still see it done today by Pee Wee football teams, and it absolutely disgusts me. It teaches nothing. And I think that's a lot of the problems with the football, especially at the Pop Warner level. You got parents coaching it. You don't have actual, football coaches. I mean, what's your feeling on Pop Warner football?
Well, first of all, I don't think any 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids, for that matter, should be smashing each other with their heads. Second,
right.
And I love the game. I played when I was younger, but you know what? You nailed it, because we have the worst coaches coaching our most vulnerable players. You have coaches at the younger levels, like you said, putting them in the bull in the ring drill, which that was my worst concussion I ever had. My 3rd year Pop Warner, I knocked myself totally unconscious and was hospitalized in some just stupid bull in the ring drill. That, like you said, it teaches the kids nothing. It's just a gladiator drill for the coach's amusement. And when I see that stuff go on, it absolutely infuriates me. I mean, there's a reason why they don't run bull in the ring drills in the NFL or college, for that matter.
Yeah.
Well, you had a broken. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, and studies have shown the earlier you're concussed, the lower your threshold is for the next. So here I was 13 years old, completely unconscious, and then that set me up for, what I'm still dealing with to this day. 9 brain surgeries later.
Well, you had a broken vertebrae a couple of weeks before the draft in 1980, but you didn't know it. When did you find out that you had played an entire season with your entire rookie season with a broken back?
That's a good question. I broke it doing squats, actually, a week before the draft. Didn't know I broke it, like you said. When I was drafted by the Jets a week later, my leg had my lower back popped. I hit a squat wrong, and my right leg just lit on fire. And when I went back to mini camp the day after the draft back in New York, my leg was just burning, and I didn't say anything, but they put us on all the Cybex machines, and they get the graph readouts on all your joints, and they came up to me and said, "What'd you do to your leg?" I said, "Nothing." And they go, "Well, you only have like 46% of the strength in your right quad as your left, and 52% of your strength of your right ham in your left." So they didn't pass it through a physical for minicamp, and I just did thousands of reps on it. When I come back to camp in July, I passed the physical, but it still was killing me. And by the end of the year, I'm playing with the Niners. During a release physical, and I've never had big thick legs. I was always top heavy, And at the end of the year, release physical, my right leg was 2.25 inches smaller in diameter than my left, and I'm right-handed.
Oh wow!
And I kept telling the docs, I said, I did a squat, something popped, and my leg's been burning ever since. So the first doc sends me to somebody, and he gives me Quaaludes or something, tells me to lay down, 20 minutes out of every hour. And I said, yeah, right. So I go to the second doc, and finally the third doc they send me to takes x-rays, and he says, "Hey, here's your problem. You fractured your sacroiliac vertebrae, and it slipped out of place over your pelvis, and it's pinching off your sciatic nerve." So I played the whole year. By then, it was healing. It had healed out of place, and I was starting to build some bulk back on the leg. And they thought, well, we can go back in and refracture it and reset it. But I said, you know what, the hell with it. I'm getting used to it by now. So, yeah, I just played with it. I found out later on in the late 80s when I was having 86 and 87, I had 5 more brain surgeries when I was in school. And I've always had problems with my neck. Even when I was playing, I used to go to chiropractors. So I'm in seeing my neurologist after one of my brain surgeries. And my neck happened to be out, like it goes out about once a month. And when it goes out, my little finger and finger next to it on both hands go numb. So I'm talking to him, and my neck's out. So when I go to turn, I have to turn up to waist, and he asks, "What's wrong with your neck?" I told him, "I've been doing this for years." He says, "Maybe get X-rays." So we get X-rays, and the technician says, "Wow, those were 2 serious compression fractures in your C6 and C7 vertebrae. When did you crush your neck?" And I had to sit back and think. And I'm thinking, you know what? I remember the game my sophomore year in high school where I hit a guy on a broken play. I peeled off across the field and hit a guy with the top of my head. My whole body went numb and burning like you hit your funny bone. And they helped me off the field and gave me a little neck brace, and I took it off that night and was back playing on Monday. So I'm guessing I probably broke my neck back in my sophomore year in high school. The back was, my rookie year. So no one ever diagnosed him, though.
Wow.
In 1980, you got your first major concussion in the NFL. Tell us about what ended up happening over the next 2 years.
Well, like I said, I was drafted by the Jets, and then I was cut in the end of preseason in 80. And then the Niners picked me up. I think it was about the 5th game of the season. And the way it works in the NFL, you play games on Sundays. Mondays are a light workout day, and Tuesdays are your days off. Well, Tuesdays are the days they bring guys in and try them out. And people don't realize that it's open season all year long. They're always cutting guys and bringing guys in. So they brought me in and worked me out on Tuesday and then signed me. So I practiced Wednesday, Thursday. We fly to Dallas on Friday. We had a game of the week. It was a Saturday game, though, so we had a short week. And they give me a skinny little playbook to just learn the basics. And first play I'm in the first quarter, I got ear hold on a Dallas tight end trap. Major concussion, but, the game never stopped. I never missed a play. And I don't remember that game. I don't remember the next week we played the Rams. But that following week, when my memory started coming back, the trainers and doctor laughingly told me I went through over 20 smelling salts during the game. Every time I'd come out, they'd give me 2 or 3. I'd pop them, clear my head, and go back in. It was a big joke. And that was in 80. And then a few months later, the early 81 Super Bowl season, is when I developed hydrocephalus and had my first brain surgery.
Unfortunately, football does have a very ugly side to it. What are the things that you personally want to bring the most awareness to?
Well, one of the things is that by the grace of God, I still function well. I've had 9 brain surgeries now over the years. I've had I've had grand mal seizures for the last 34 years. And again, God's had His hand on me. But what I try to do is, and I know this, I'm smart enough to know if I was a bricklayer that had brain surgery, no one would give a damn about talking to me. The fact that, I had a Super Bowl ring and I had an Orange Bowl ring. I lost both of those about 3 or 4 years ago when we lost our house. I have no idea where they're at. But I know that opens doors for me. And so I'm trying to use that platform to help anyone, and particularly their families, anyone dealing with traumatic brain injuries. So one of the things I want to do is we're trying to change the culture of the game. Somehow it evolved from, making tackles to blowing guys up. You don't even see guys wrap up anymore. When I was playing, they'd wrap up, grab handfuls of jersey when you tackle. They don't even do that anymore. They just launch themselves, So, changing the culture of the game, get rid of these kill shots, take the head out of the game as much as you can. I want to see it safer for the kids. I would not wish and again, I'm doing well compared to a lot of guys, but I would not wish this on any family. I was 22 when I had my first brain surgery. I know no other way in life of not remembering what I did yesterday, or I'm writing notes down right now as we're speaking. I have hundreds and hundreds of notebooks of every day of my life. I probably have 8 pages just today. So I want to see people avoid what the carnage my family has had to face, and keep some of the kids, safe. And not just the ball players. So we work with everyone with brain injuries. I work a lot with the veterans. We work with car accident victims, anyone. It doesn't matter. Brain injuries are brain injury.
Do you think or do you feel that the NFL is sincere in its efforts to make the game safe, or is it just to avoid lawsuits?
Hell no. It's all PR. These guys, they made $9.5 billion 2 years ago. Billion.
Yeah.
Now, to put that in perspective, okay, $1 million in $100 bills is a block 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet tall. That's $1 million. Okay, $1 billion is a room 16 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. Now go up 9.5 stories of $100 bills, and that's how much they made. Roger Goodell paid himself $44 million last year. That's like $21,000 an hour. They don't give a damn about making it safe. They want it. They're looking at Goodell's looking to hit $15 million or $15 billion a year. What was it projected in the next 4 years? It's all about the money. I mean, only because their feet have been held to the fire with this lawsuit are they acting like they're doing anything. I mean, I've had 9 NFL brain surgeries, 34 years of NFL grand mal seizures. I still don't qualify for a penny of NFL benefits. Nothing.
Right.
So why not take 0.5% of their $9.5 billion? And I wrote this out for Roger. I sent a letter to him 2 years ago. Take 0.5% of your $9.5 billion. That's like $247 million. Put that in a non-wasting endowment account to fund retirement for players they're going to be injured. It's not if you get injured. When you play, you will be. I mean, do you think they'd miss 0.5%? I mean, I don't know. I'm brain damaged, but even that makes sense to me.
Well, the thing that gets me is this. They do all this concussion protocol and everything, but yet they schedule more and more games on days other than Sunday. And if they really cared about the players, you wouldn't have Thursday night games, Monday night games, Sunday night games. I mean, there's teams that play an away game on a Sunday night that are playing a game on a Thursday night.
I know. And they're pushing for an 18-game season. They're pushing to play games over in Europe. So you have this full-day flight over their play. You're missing 2 days of treatment. It's crazy. It's all about for the love of money.
Well, like you said, they want to expand the 18-game season. They want to expand the playoffs. It just does not seem like they're even remotely really genuinely concerned about players, especially players who retired prior to now. They don't even look like they're trying to even take care of anybody.
They're not. And like I said, if their feet weren't being held to fire in this even this lawsuit, okay, this so-called win we had, okay, just take my example. I was just a no-name, nothing, blue-collar, 22-year-old kid, my second year in the NFL, brain surgery, okay. My family's life has never been the same since. But so now here it is, 35 years later, 9 brain surgery. This is what I might qualify for. So there's 7 categories that you have to be diagnosed with to get anything out of the NFL brain injury lawsuit, which we supposedly won. So if you're diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, that pays up to $5 million. And if you're diagnosed with dementia, that pays up to $4.5 million. And if you die of CTE, that pays $4.5 million. Parkinson's pays $4 million. So it goes on and on and on, and it goes down to what they call mild cognitive impairment 2.0 and mild cognitive impairment 1.5 or 1.0. I think that pays $3 million. So let's say I qualify for the lowest settlement because I function pretty well despite all my brain surgeries. So the $3 million, it sounds pretty good, huh? But to be vested in the lawsuit, you have to have 5 active years in the NFL. Okay, now the average life expectancy in the NFL is 3.2 years, which is why they made a 4-year vesting period. You have to play 4 years in the NFL. The average career is 3.2. The lawsuit is 5 years. So I played 2 years, but the year I had brain surgery doesn't count in the NFL brain injury lawsuit because I was injured in preseason. So now I'm down to 1 season credited, so I'll get 20% of that $3 million, right? So that's what is that, 600,000?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad. But then again, there's a few more caveats. You have to have been diagnosed before age 44. So if they go at my age at 56 when we finally won the suit, now my 20% is reduced to another 60%. So you got 40% of 600,000. That's $240,000 I'll get for the last 34 years of my life, which have been. And I'm not bitching about it, but it's believe me, what it is. I've lost 10 times that over the years, easily. You know. And it's
well,
all.
We got to
call. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
It's all smoke and mirrors, you know.
Yeah. We got a caller on the line. You there, caller?
Yes.
Hey,
Hi, George.
Joe.
My name
Joe
is
Rodriguez. He's the host on our boxing show every Tuesday night. Joe, you got a question for George?
I do, and a comment. George, I commend you greatly, and it's heartbreaking to see what you've gone through. I just learned about you, sadly, because I knew that Mike was going to have you on the show, and I looked you up, and it really is shameful what's happened to you and your family, and my heart goes out to you. My question is, go ahead. I'm sorry, George.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's my family that's taken a beating. I mean, after 20 years, almost 20, my wife and I are going through a divorce right now. You know, it's been horrible what it did to my family. They didn't even, and like my wife said, she never even played the game, and she hates what it's done to her life. You know, that's my biggest regret. I'm okay with what it's done to me, but you know, it tears my heart out what it's done to my family. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to ask you about this. You know, Chris Borland was a really terrific linebacker with the 49ers. He retired after just 1 season in the NFL. And I remember Robert Smith, who was a terrific running back with the Vikings. He retired in his prime. And I recall Robert Smith is specifically saying that he went to some gathering where he saw former NFL players, and he was horrified at what he saw, and that prompted him to retire. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the day after Chris Borland retired, he called me, and we had an hour-long talk. And Chris is now on our board of directors, the Visger Group. You know, I have a brain injury consulting group. And a few weeks ago, Todd Trigstead, movie producer, and I had the premiere showing of Todd's movie, Gridiron Gladiators, The History and Uncertain Future of American Football. And it just takes you through the history of the game. I've got a little part in it. But so I had Chris up there at the premiere showing with me, and in addition to the last year, I've had 3 mothers come to our website, 3 mothers of former high school football players who never had concussions. The kids went through depression, killed themselves, and all 3 had CTE. Actually, one of them died in a car wreck, but after just crazy actions, and all 3 had CTE. So I had one of the mothers, and I had Chris Borland and I up in Portland, Oregon, fielding questions after Todd showed his premiere showing of Gridiron Gladiators. So Chris has been working closely with us. I told him he's an incredibly well-spoken guy. You know, he led the 49ers in tackles his rookie year. And then he said one of the reasons, when we talked the day after he retired, one of the reasons why he retired, he said he was reading up on me. And I said, you know what, Chris? What you have done not only is going to save or impact your life, you have impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of other lives. Because you're stepping forward and saying, you know what, the love of money isn't worth my mind. And so the guy, he's a great, I don't want to call him a kid, but great guy, very well-spoken, quiet kid. And no, he caused a big ripple, you know. Several other 49ers retired this year, too.
That's right, Patrick Willis.
Yep. And then one of their offensive tackles not long ago.
Anthony Davis.
Yeah. He was, only his 3rd, 4th year, wasn't it? Or?
Yeah, he'd been in since 2010. and he suffered a really, really bad concussion last year that sidelined him for most of the season. It was very unusual to see a guy out that long with a concussion.
No kidding. With mine, my last one, all they did was they told me, like I said, a week and a half or so later when my memory came back, they laughingly told me I went through over 20 smelling salts during the game. So they held me out just long enough to pop a couple of capsules and stick me back in.
Well, and I think another problem that is overlooked is not just the NFL, but there's no lawsuits on any colleges, any high schools, and you got guys that didn't even make it to the NFL that have this problem just from when they play. I mean, if you start playing Pee Wee football when you're 6 or 7 years old and you play through college, you've played the game 16 years, and those guys are kind of just left out completely.
Absolutely. Well, I believe there's a big class action suit against the NCAA right now, isn't there?
Not sure. I haven't heard about that one, but I hope there is. The NCAA needs to be sued for a lot of things.
There is. I mean, I knew guys in college when I played at Colorado. I knew guys just during that were redshirted, had 5 years at school, that had like 7 and 8 surgeries just during their college career. So, granted, you have a scholarship. Some of them did. And people say, well, geez, you got your college paid for, but they're crippled for the rest of their life. Not to mention what it does to you cognitively. And the universities make hundreds of millions of dollars off these guys,
Right.
So there should be some kind of medical There should be some kind of medical compensation for these college players that bring in all this money for the schools, and they hobble off into the sunset, Some kind of work comp, something for them, you know what I mean? Cover their injuries.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt.
Is Joe still on the line? Was there anything else you wanted to ask George?
Well, George, I'm sitting in front of my computer, and you're right. There is a lawsuit, class action lawsuit against the NCAA for concussions, and the up-to-date information is that the NCAA has proposed a settlement, which I hope they don't accept, because these settlements are always below what it's actually worth.
Oh, absolutely. There's another lawsuit, too, out. One of the 3 mothers, like I told you, of whose kids, never played beyond high school, committed suicide at CT, Deborah Pica, she came to me probably a year and a half ago to our website and just said, no one will listen to me. She'd gone to senators, blah, blah, blah. No one will listen to her. She said, her son pled for help for years. And just in the last night he was in the house, he was crying. He said, Mom, I can't go on anymore. I'm going to kill myself. And he ran out of the house, and she and her daughter drove the streets looking for him in trees with flashlights. And they come home, and they find him. He hung himself in the shed. I mean, the mother had to cut her dead son's body down. And sure enough, and luckily her other son convinced her to have his brain tested at Boston University. And poor Joseph had tested out between stage 2 and stage 3 of CTE, which Dr. Ann McKee said she'd never seen it that bad in a kid that young. And then made Dr. McKee say, what if this is an epidemic no one has ever looked for? What if a bunch of these former high school kids that go on to, and I'm not making excuses for everybody, but go on to, have criminal lives or what, violent or whatever. And what if a lot of them are suffering from cognitive damage or CTE from their high school playing days? You don't even have to have concussions to get it.
Yeah. Well, right now I just want to bring up to everybody real quick. I got to get this in because our show is 45 minutes, but the first 30 minutes are live. Then we'll go off the air at the bottom of the hour in like a minute. We'll still be on Talk and Know. That time will be archived, and you'll be able to hear the entire show. You can go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page, or you can go to Blog Talk Radio. So, Matt?
Joey, I'm sorry, not Joel. George, I know that you had been talking about how you consult directly or talk directly to the NFL about potential rule changes. What are some of the changes that you would like to see specifically the NFL implement to make the game safer?
some of the things that I recommended, they are implementing now. I think that they've pushed the kickoff closer, so now they're having more touchbacks. I had one of the things. Here's some of my recommendations. I'm just pulling off the top of my head, but you can go to Sports Digest 2010. I think it was December 2010. They posted an article titled "The Visger Rules," and they were my suggestions that Dr. Rich Ellenbogen of the NFL's Head, Neck, and Spine Injury Group had asked me for. And so some of the things I recommended were they're simple fixes. Okay, and it's not just concussions that are causing the damage. I mean, Mike Webster never had a concussion. He was the first one that Dr. Bernard O'Malley diagnosed with CTE. So how about this?
Right.
How about starting all linemen in 2-point stances? So now you're going to have guys more position blocking and like pass blocking, even on runs, but you're not leading with your head every play. Have everyone has to line up, let's say, within 3 or 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. So you don't have safeties back there 8 and 10 yards deep coming in like guided missiles, laying guys out. I mean, there's some simple things that can be done that a lot of people wouldn't even probably notice, My last recommendation, I gave to Dr. Ellenbogen was, I said, this one will never fly. I said, but you really want to get rid of head injury or reduce head injury in football? Get rid of helmets. I mean, back in the 60s when they had cheap little helmets and single bar face masks, they didn't teach you to bow your neck and stick your face in the numbers. It was all shoulder blocking and shoulder tackling. And you didn't have the problems like you do now, I don't think there's any one silver bullet, but there's a number of things they can do that could mitigate a lot of the damage that's occurring right now. Here's another one, too, that I had. Why is it that you have to have a license to change a toilet, but any knucklehead can be out there coaching our kids in football, the most dangerous sport there is? How about having some kind of test that people have to take to show you're qualified to coach young players? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's even at the high school level. I mean, you got guys that are coaches because they're teachers and they want the extra $2,000 or $3,000 stipend.
Or they're frustrated former athletes that try to live vicariously through their players and make them do things that they never could do. We've all seen the big tough Vince Lombardi coaches, and then you find out, the guy, never even played. I coached football for a few years, and I wasn't one of those guys, I didn't coach for years when I got out. I had a lot of opportunities because I just didn't know how I could handle a mother if she came to me and said, you SOB, you knew what could happen to my son, and you taught him the same way you were taught, and now look at him. So I stayed away from the game for years. The first year I got back into coaching, I coached my church's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade flag football team, and that kind of got me back into the camaraderie and you know what I mean. It was a fun game, and the kids weren't hurting themselves, and that kind of got me back into it. And then I actually coached high school for I think 3 years, but I had enough,
Well, I can tell you another problem that I've seen as a coach. I coached for 24, 25 years. I coached arena football or indoor football the last 3 or 4 years at the professional level. But you come to a point where, a perfect example is the first year I was a head coach. It was in Evansville, and my best receiver in our last preseason game gets a concussion. Now, the team doctor comes up to me a week later. She still didn't release him, so that was fine. 2 weeks after that, which this has only been a couple weeks since he's had it, 2 or 3 weeks, she comes up and tells me he's ready to go. Now, I still did not play him for another 2 or 3 weeks, but when you're getting paid to coach a team and you got to feed your family, it's really hard to tell a guy that you really need to play to win the game that he's not to play.
Well, good for you.
I at the high school,
because I totally understand because you're I totally commend you on that because I totally understand your paycheck is on the line if you're not winning. But good for you for looking out for your players like that.
But see, I think the problem here is this: at the high school level, A good high school coach to me is a guy that really cares about the kids and, I mean, that knows football, but maybe he goes 4-6, but he protects the kids. I don't think that guy should have to worry about his job. And I think if I think in high school, and this is the way I'm going to do it. We discussed this off air, that I have a real problem with my son playing high school football, which I know for people listening that know me, that just probably think that that's nuts because I say that. But I really don't want my son to play high school football. But I think there ought to be a national rule in high school that if you get a concussion in a game, you cannot play the rest of that year.
I agree. And, you know, and
I mean, because it's always the second one that gets you.
Well, and it's not just concussions. It's the hundreds or thousands of subconcussive hits that are just as damaging. I mean, great example. You know, Mike Webster never had a concussion. He never had a diagnosed concussion. The guy died of CTE. You know, these high school kids that are killing themselves now, none of those guys had concussions. They all had CTE. So it's not just, you know, it's just that repeated banging. Well, another recommendation that I made, in fact, they actually implemented this in Sacramento last year. Kids can only be in pads twice a week. Only 2 days a week. When I was in high school at Stag High, now we had a great team, you know, undefeated, nationally ranked. We started off the season with 2 weeks of 3 a days. Full padded practices 3 times a day, banging heads. And so, and now, like I said, Sacramento Metro League, 2 days a week you can only hit. Well, you know, you need a lot of great practice in timing in helmets and shorts. You don't need to be banging these kids every day, you know. That's a huge step right there.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember a coach, he was a Division III, is the winningest coach in college history. His name escapes me right now, but I think it was at St. John's. It was a Division III school where, I mean, his winning record was unreal, and he did not believe in hitting at all in practices.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is this. I don't think that in high school, I mean, I know you need to hit a little bit, but, I mean, you can hit a pad. You can teach a kid how to tackle in a way that is not violent. And, I mean, the thing that drives me nuts is when I see tackling drills at any level where they've got kids more than 4 or 5 yards apart.
Oh, I know, yeah. I don't know if you guys happen to see the Slate magazine contracted with me a year or so ago to write an article on Friday Night Tykes. You guys ever watch that HBO special on?
I have watched that show. It's sickening too, by the way.
Does it not make you want to vomit?
I've never seen that one.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I watched one of the sequences, and they wanted me to write a 500 to 700 word editorial. I sent them 9 pages. I went through that show, and I'm picking guys' names out. And it was when Coach Johnson or whatever his name was had those 2 7-year-olds, you know, 10 yards apart, you know, in a nutcracker drill, and they're smashing each other. They're both on the ground crying, and they're telling them to suck it up. It's like, who in the hell are these people, and what parents would let these guys coach their kids?
Yeah, and the parents are all sitting there on the sidelines watching it, letting them do it.
Oh, they love it. I'm like, what are you people thinking of, you know? So
that's all people that have never actually played real competitive football.
That's exactly it. Because if you had, you would never put your kids through that stuff. You nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you this. My sons, the only years they made it through Pee Wee football teams is where there was very little tackling. And like I said, I was still uncomfortable with it, and I know that you have kids of your own. How did you and your wife deal with it when it came to whether they played football or not?
Well, that's a great question. In 2009, things were really starting to implode on me. I think I lost my business right around then. I would do I had an environmental consulting business for years. You know, I'm a wildlife biologist. I would do big projects and write big reports and forget to bill them. And we were getting deeper and deeper in debt. And, you know, so in 2009, my wife, my primary care told me that, George, you have frontal lobe dementia. You need to turn on your driver's license, file for SSI, and get your finances in order. You know, we go down to Dr. Amon's clinic down in Southern Cal for a 3-day full-blown neurocognitive evaluation. And my son Jack was 9 at the time, and my wife, I'm divorced now, but my wife at the time went with me, and I had Jack and my ex-wife. And after 3 days of 8-hour-a-day full-blown evaluations, we sit down with Dr. Amon and Dr. Willemeyer, who runs his clinic, and Doc Amon just says, George, it's a miracle you can even function with the amount of brain damage you have. We walk, and my son had been on me to play Pop Warner, and all of his buddies have been playing for a couple of years already, and I said, no, you're not going to play Bud till you get in high school. And we walk out of there, we don't even get to the truck, and my wife at the time says, Jack will never play football. And, of course, he looks up at me, and he'd heard all the stories of, undefeated high school teams and, Orange Bowl and Super Bowl. And he looks up at me, and I looked at him, and I said, Bud, I can't argue with your mom. I said, it is not worth the price that we've all paid. I said, you'll be great at anything you put your mind to, but you don't need to play football. And he will never play the game that I loved. My greatest friendships, other than my brothers, were guys I played ball with, and that's what breaks my heart. I mean, it's the camaraderie that you get, playing that sport. I don't know if there's anything else like it, because you have to push yourself so much, But he'll never play.
Well, we got a few minutes left. George, I'd just like to pitch your book. You've got a book about your life in and out of football. I believe it's called Out of My Head.
Yep, we have Well, I'm also working on a full-blown, I've got 527 pages in a full-blown autobiography, but I sent it to an editor. We're going to try to break it out into 3 separate books. My problem is my story keeps going, but people can go to our website. We have a traumatic brain injury consulting business, and our website is just a clearinghouse for traumatic brain injury information. They can go to www.thevisgergroup.org. That's thevisgergroup.org, and they can contact me or us through that. We do speaking engagements and all over the country. I was in Michigan last week, and Hawaii not long before that, and Cleveland, and so we were all over, and we speak at any groups, not just football groups. So, I'm in a unique position, even though I don't have anything, but I'm in a unique position to be able to still talk about this and help folks. So that's our mission right now.
Well, I can tell you this, George. Usually about 10 minutes ago, me and Matt would have been texting each other frantically trying to figure out other questions to ask. And I can tell you, you've been an absolute great interview. We would love to have you back on, because I think we could probably sit here and have this discussion for about 3 hours. I think the things you are doing to help other people is, there's not many people, especially this day and age, that worry about anybody outside of themselves. And I think that just from what I've read about you, and the thing that was funny is how we were already friends on Facebook. I don't know who sent who the request. I didn't even know we were friends. And somebody had posted something with your name and the Outside the Lines documentary on it. And I happened to click on and I watched it. And I sent a message to Matt and said, man, we need to have this guy on. So I figured I'd do a search, see if you're on Facebook, and I found out we were already friends, and that's when I sent you the message. But it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show tonight, George.
Well, guys, I'll come back anytime. As you can tell, I'm not at a loss for words. I can talk for hours. But, anything we can do to help out with this cause. We're losing 22 military vets a day to suicide. A lot of them mainly due to head injuries or suffering. We've had 9 NFL suicides the last 4 years. I have, like I said, mothers of 3 high school kids who never had concussions who killed themselves. We're in a unique situation that we can maybe prevent some of this stuff by bringing attention to it. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on. So,
they're going to cut us off in a second. They're going to cut us off here in a second, no matter what. They always cut off at quarter till the hour. So once again, I really want to thank you for coming on. You got any final quick words, Matt?
No, just want to second everything you said to him, Mike. George, really appreciate having you on, and very, very informative. And we appreciate what you're doing for trying to help other people.
Well, good deal. Well, send us the link, and we'll post it up on the website and everything else. So good job, guys.
I will send it to you probably in the next hour or so when it's on the podcast. But
excellent. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Remember, guys, tomorrow night we got the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye on at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. Once again, you're listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.